Good evening. There we go. Y'all doing okay? So, welcome to the new folks that showed up. This course is called Co-Parenting with God. We're actually going to be looking at page 4 in the books here in here in just a few moments. A couple things I want to go over, and I'm going to stick to some notes on some of this. In our first class, I mentioned this, and I just kind of want to reiterate, please feel free to ask questions anytime. But I also understand that not every question, feels right in the moment, or could be a sensitive question. So feel free to call, text, email. Now, here's the response to that. I'm not an expert in parenting, so what I will probably do, and I'm just going to let y'all know this up front, is I'm reaching out to people who are more experienced and tenured in raising kids, and bouncing things off of them with these questions to get their feedback and experiences. But if you do have a question, I'll make sure and leave out any names in case it's a sensitive question. But please feel free to ask those questions. So last Sunday we focused on Proverbs 22, verse 6. Train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it. As a recap, we kind of looked at what it means to train or to train up. Parenting isn't passive. It's work, it's effort, it's intentional. We talked about the weight of the responsibility of parenting. The power of our example and influence. We're always teaching even when we're not talking. And the long-term nature of parenting. This training spans every stage of a child's life. I was sitting down and as I was writing this out, and I was thinking, I'm almost there. I've almost experienced every stage of child life. And I thought, how would I break this down to somebody? And of course, those who know me know my brain works on humor alone. So I started typing some things out, and then so I thought y'all might get some enjoyment out of these. So a humorous look at the stages of parenting. Infancy. You now speak fluent gibberish. Burps are celebrations, and sleep is a myth. Toddler stage. The floor is lava. If you know what that means, everywhere you step, there's something there. Why is the only word they know. No is the word we seem to only know. Everything's a negotiation, and privacy is extinct. 4 to 5 year old range. Philosophical questions like, do worms poop? One book gets read 87 times nightly. Those who've experienced that. Elementary stages, 6 to 10, you become a personal Uber with no pay or tips. Kids collect valuable treasures, which are really just trash. And then they are very blunt with you, like your belly jiggles when I poke it kind of thing. Middle school, eye roll becomes a language or a form of communication. You go from superhero to super embarrassing. And they smell like they wrestled a goat and refuse to take a shower. High school, they vanish until they need money or need a ride. Mood swings from I've got this to my life is over. And you're either their enemy or their therapist. That's kind of how I've come to conclude the stages of parenting thus far. So I hope y'all can enjoy some of that. And we laugh, but parenting is a roller coaster. And I thought, man, it's almost like a business. We cover every job title. We're the CFO, we're the CEO, we're the HR representative, the therapist. And it can be very exhausting, but the point that we're going to get to with all this, especially tonight, is that through all of this, through all these stages, through all these things, our children need us to be their parent. And that's what we're really going to drive home tonight. So page 4 says at the bottom, phrases it like this: your kids need a parent, not a buddy. Proverbs 13:24. And no, sorry, I should have said this. Most of this, actually, that I'm talking about is not in the book. It's just things I wanted to to talk about. Proverbs 13:24, it says, "Whoever spares the rod hates his son, but he who loves him is diligent to discipline him." We're going to be getting into some disciplinary talks in some later lessons, but what I wanted to pull out from this verse specifically tonight is I don't think that we need to look at this as a sense of harshness necessarily, but about our intentional guidance. We are intentionally guiding our children. God calls us to discipline and correct and train because we love them, not because we want control necessarily. Came across a couple other points that I thought were good under the sense of buddies don't set boundaries, but parents do. To really knock on this buddies word, I think most of us can agree that children thrive with structure and correction. Typically, they'll thrive under structure and correction. And discipline today equals respect tomorrow kind of concept. If we stay consistent, we talked about that word consistent last class, we will see respect come from that discipline. A buddy avoids conflict, but a parent steps into it for the child's good. This is something we're going to talk a little bit more about as well. Proverbs 19:18 says, "Discipline your son, for there is hope. Do not set your heart on putting him to death." So, as you guys think about, and again, we're going to talk more about this, but in that frame of reference to intentional guidance, do you guys kind of agree or do you disagree that that's the goal of our discipline or why we discipline? Is it for intentional guidance?
Yeah, I mean, it's not merely punishment. If it's merely punishment, then they're not learning anything. And that's something that's so hard to figure out, that balance of punishment and correction and, the levels of all that.
Yeah.
And knowing in every situation what they need.
Yeah.
But I think that word is absolutely correct. Intentional guidance, making sure that they understand what they did that was wrong. Sometimes that's the hardest part, is just getting them to understand what particular part of that was wrong, why it was wrong, and why there has to be consequences.
Yeah.
Not just, well, if I do this, this happens. But understanding I don't need to do this because it's dangerous or because it's disrespectful. And that's why I'm being punished for that.
Yeah. No, it's great. And I'm sure, that finding that balance, like you say, is extremely difficult because we can get emotional too as parents, maybe overreact sometimes. I hope I'm not alone in that. You get going on something and maybe your punishment becomes more severe than the crime was calling for. And we learn some valuable lessons through those, but Brad talked about this last Sunday, but just being honest with them and taking accountability and saying, you know what, but you need a discipline for this. I think I might have overreacted a little bit in what I did, but let's still address this so we don't do it anymore, kind of thing. We just got to own it and let them know we're doing our best. Yeah.
And you actually come to, sometimes it takes a little bit longer for me to think about that, so where it just doesn't fly off the handle, I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
whatever it is. So when you take that second to yourself, you're also teaching them, okay, I have to think before I react.
Yeah.
To, and
quick to hear, slow to speak, right? So that's, I think, easier said than done so many times. And, I know I'm guilty of that. Daphne and I have really, really been working, I think over the last year or two, harder at not necessarily calling each other out in front of the kids, but trying to have some hand motion or signals that say, hey, we're getting ahead of ourselves. And she'll do it to me, I'll do it to her. And we get mad in the moment because we're like getting called out. It's like, you hush. Now we got a whole other scene, right? But if we listen, we back up a little bit, we'll learn something about ourselves, and we'll help each other as well.
A friend of mine told me years ago, it's really hard sometimes too, is making sure that you know that they know that what they're doing is wrong and understand what you're asking them to do. Your friend told me the story. He said he gets so frustrated with his daughter because he kept asking her to not, I don't remember if it was not do something or do something, and he was getting so frustrated. And finally one day he said, "Do you understand what this word means?" And she said, "No." I have no idea.
Yeah.
What you're talking about.
So, some.
He started to ask because it was upsetting him so much.
Yep.
But she had no idea what he was trying to get her to do.
Yeah. I think sometimes we parent as if they're an adult. We expect them to know what we're talking about and know what we mean by what we say. It's so hard to just step back, put yourself in their shoes, and remember they're hearing this. Sometimes this language is over their heads. We got to speak on their level. This is a great point.
Really hard at the stage we're at with Rocky. Because with Presley, when she was like, because he's 18, 19 months old, when she was that age, all we ever had to do was say no. And she also didn't she wasn't curious enough to get into trouble. I don't know. But Rocky, he does stuff, and he'll give us the look, and that he's being mischievous, and he's about to do something he knows is wrong.
Yeah.
But we struggle with the discipline because our parents' answer to everything is spank him. And we're like, I don't think he's going to understand. We've tried that before, and that just makes it worse. And then he does things that are even worse than what he was about to do. And we're like, I don't think he really understands that yet. So how do we discipline him so that we are consistent and that he knows it's wrong, but he just doesn't understand the spanking. He just knows that hurt, and then he'll go back and do it, or he'll get even more mad and he'll do something even worse. It's just because all we ever had to do with Presley was say no.
Yeah.
He's
So.
I don't know what that means, but I'm going to do it, and if I get spanked, I'm just going to do something even worse.
This goes so well back to class 1 that we talked about, different kids, different personalities, different responses. And you could talk to 100 different people about how you might handle that situation, and you get 100 different answers.
Yeah, we've not really found it yet.
I'll tell you this, you will find it as long as you stay consistent. You will find it.
Natalie was saying, I don't know if you've heard him scream, but when he does get mad or upset and he's screaming, he could get information out of terrorists. And so I have to take a step back a lot and just go to a different room and let him scream. I have to leave because I get frustrated. And Presley actually pulled me out on it once. She yelled at Rocky, and I said, "Don't yell at your brother. That's not nice. You don't do it. You're wrong when there's not." Well, you yell at him.
Honesty, yeah. Yeah. Honesty.
So I have to step back a lot because I'm I don't know what works yet, and we're just in this constant headbutt.
Yeah, that's tough. We're going to be getting more into discipline, I promise. But hold on to what you said about her speaking up. I want to come back to that. But for now, let's move on. So I've got this from 1 Timothy 4:12. Let no one despise you for your youth, but set the believers an example. You won't respect, kids won't respect a parent who sacrifices truth, okay, for whatever reason. They're going to see inconsistency if a parent, they're going to see that a mile away if a parent's being inconsistent with what they're teaching versus what they're doing or how they're acting in other situations. So again, that goes back to our example around them. And by the way, that's literally all the time. It's all the time. Kids pay attention when you don't know. A quick funny story. So, well, no, never mind. I'm not going to tell that. I'll tell you later. I'll get completely off topic. Okay. Fourth point, boundaries over approval is what I titled it. Wanting to be liked by your child in every moment may lead to compromise. Probably will lead to compromise. And when I say that, not the good kind of compromise where you both get what you want. It's the kind of compromise that compromises your consistency with your discipline or what you're teaching because you're trying to appease this 4-year-old or 3-year-old or 2-year-old just to get them to be quiet. That's not going to be a good example to continually sit. So we don't want to, it's not looking to be liked, to be that buddy-buddy system in that way. We still have to be a parent. Galatians 1:10 is a good reflection of this. Am I now seeking the approval of man or of God? If you put yourself in those shoes and you think about who am I standing for, who am I an example of in this situation, even to my own children? Not just those around me, but who am I representing right now to my kids? Who are they seeing through me? Parent now, friend later, point 5. Parenting faithfully builds a foundation for friendship down the road. I think there's a lot of truth to this. It may not fit in every single situation, but I think for the most part, I'll say those of us who went through good parents, we can probably say we've got a good relationship now, a respectful friendship now. Jesus set the tone. From John 15:14 is where I took this. You are my friends if you do what I command you. If we think about friendship or the buddy system, Jesus calls us his friends. God calls us his friends when we do what he would have us to do. We got to think about, again, the relationship. Let me rephrase this all over. A lot of what we're talking about, how we deal with our kids and the frustrations we deal with our kids and how we want to teach them and love them, you're going to be able to parallel this with you now and your relationship with God. It's going to be very interesting to think about, here we are talking about, man, my kid, tell him what to do, tell him how to do it, and he still does it wrong.
One time, when the boys were really little, it was after services, and they were playing on the front stairs at East End, and I said, man, wouldn't it be so nice if they would just listen to you the first time? And she said, and the preacher's wife at the time said, I'm sure God feels the same way about us. And I was like,
Yeah. That nails the head on the. Yeah, I mean, it's just when you start thinking about how frustrated you get with things you're spending your effort and love and dedication to, and they're still not doing it. Put yourself in those shoes with God. It'll be a very humbling experience. Last point on this that I have is you're their only parent, and I understand there's situations where kids come from other homes, but I hope you take this for what it means. You are their primary one-on-one example and influence in the home. They'll have many friends, but only one mom and dad. Ephesians 6:4 says, Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. We don't want to hand off or expect someone else to take charge of what our God-given role is. It's not send our kids to school to learn how to behave. It's not send our kids to Bible class to learn about God. It's what happens in the home, what we teach and train in the home that is the strongest influence. It comes from mom and dad. So they need us all the time. All the time. Okay, I had a great question, very difficult question. Reached out for some help on this question. I'm going to stick to the notes because I kind of took those notes and wrote it out accordingly. I hope it makes sense. Hopefully it's not hard to follow along. So the question was, how do you handle it when you have family that may not be the best influence or example for your child? Tough question. This was a great response from some very good friends of ours. We want to honor our family, but we also have a God-given responsibility to shape our child's character and faith. There may be times when we have to gently and lovingly identify that certain behaviors, even from people we care about, don't align with how God calls us to live. We must be careful not to make it about criticism, condemnation, or acting as if we are holier than thou, but helping our children learn and know how to separate love for a person from copying their actions. Example. We love fill in the blanks, mom, dad. We love them, and they have many good qualities, but sometimes they say bad things or they talk in a way that isn't how Jesus wants us to talk or act. Fill in the blanks. We shouldn't talk that way, and we can choose different words in our home. That may be an example of what that looks like. Still giving respect, still giving honor, but pulling their attention to what the right example is. So we must handle these situations with love, and remember that children don't have our understanding or maturity. They may feel confused or maybe even disloyal for noticing a parent's inconsistency, and we can't say, don't tell them that I said this, but, because that breaks trust and puts the child in the middle of it. We have to be clear that it's not about hiding anything from our spouse. It's about learning what's right, even when it's hard. We can love someone and still choose to live differently. This will help teach your child to walk in both grace and truth. We can always reinforce these talks with God is working in all of us, and it's our job to listen to Him first, even when it means not following what others around us are saying or doing. Children need a safe place to process what they see in the adults they love, and we need to build on open communication, empathy, and gospel-centered clarity to help them navigate those difficult situations. Our job is not to protect our child from seeing brokenness, it is to guide them through it, modeling what it looks like to walk in truth, love, and faithfulness when life is complex. By doing this, by being that example and building that parent-child relationship, we allow our children to become an example or to become additional examples to those around them. Suddenly, their influence in praying or choosing good words or good deeds can begin to change those closest to them or who want to be closest to them. But the most important thing for us to walk away from as parents is that we will always be our child's greatest influence. I thought that was very well written and very well said. Very good thoughts, biblical thoughts tied into that response. I think in these situations, I've seen these situations outside looking in. I'm thankful that we haven't had to experience too much of it in our own family. But navigating those waters is very difficult. A lot of people lose some influence, I guess, sometimes over their kids if they spend too much time around those who aren't a good influence. If they're over at Uncle Bob's house 24/7 and Uncle Bob smokes and drinks and does whatever, all the bad things, what are we exposing them to? We're still the parent. We still have a responsibility to watch who they're being influenced by. Does anyone have anything to add to or take away from any of that? I know that's a lot to take in, but side notes, agreements, disagreements. Yeah, yeah. Going back to our example and our influence, whether that be individually, but hopefully as a parent unit. Great feedback. Great verse to remember. We say it all the time, but really think about how this impacts you in the home. Matthew 5:16. Let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. I'm going to tell myself. We did very well for a few years recently, nightly studies. We've always done pretty good with nightly prayers, to the point that if we didn't do a nightly prayer, our kids would call us out on it. They wouldn't go to bed. I mean, Tate would literally refuse to go to bed until we said prayer, or until he said prayer, because I want to say prayer. Okay, you can say prayer. I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for being called out on those moments, because they're thinking about that, and that's important to them now. And I make sure that we express that to them. Thanks for the reminder. You're right. We need to pray. Or, before we get ready to eat, they're all sitting there waiting, staring at you, like, we know we got to pray before we eat, right? You just don't know how far those examples go, even when you're not setting it in the moment, and they remind you later, hey, you're missing a step here. So what we teach our children now can come back to us, and we can be encouraged and influenced even by them. And that's a beautiful thing. So, that light that we shine from that little age is doing a lot of good. So I'll tell you this. I was talking about, them paying attention. This was about 3 or 4 years ago. Tate was having thoughts of a giant spider being in his closet or something like that. And Daphne and I had gone through a period where our alone time was to sit on the couch and watch a Netflix show, and we'd massage each other's feet. Holly knows this story. And it just became a nightly ritual, something we both could enjoy. And so she had to get up and go take care of Tate, and she was in there, and she came back kind of laugh crying, and she said, Tate said, it's okay, Mom. I know you and Dad got to go tickle toes right now. We didn't know he knew that we did that. But the problem was him going around telling other people that we were tickling toes, and I needed to clarify what that story meant to save embarrassment. They see everything. They see us behind the scenes. So just know and try to remember, and this is something I'm trying to tell myself, is we have every married couple has arguments. We close the door when we have an argument, but our voice is still raised. And there's been times when we've come out of that room and the kids will be crying. And you have to remember you're always an example. Even behind closed doors, you're always setting a tone.
That example can also carry over to, for example, my family are not Christians, and with my dad, for example, I'm not even sure he believes in God, but when we sit down to eat, if we don't say a prayer, he'll speak up and say, hey, we forgot to say the prayer. So that example can carry over into lives of people that aren't even faithful.
Yep.
And they see that and they learn from it.
That's great. So I want to bring this point out too, because I came across this. It's so simply worded. It's so effective. We don't parent perfectly, but we parent purposefully. And we depend on God's grace a whole lot. So, I know we're going to get real hard on ourselves throughout this series, but just remember, we're all in this kind of parenting together. We're all making mistakes, but we're learning along the way. And we need to remember that God's grace is there for us. He's still there for us. We need to pray for guidance and pray for help and be an encouragement to one another as well. Okay. Let's look at some of these discussion questions. Some of these we've probably already talked about, but question 1 says, the truth, it's hard being a parent. Discuss the challenges of different ages or stages of raising children, infant, toddler, grade school years, preteens, teens, college age, etc. We've talked about some of these, but is there anything that you guys feel like you've experienced that we'll just say that you feel like you handled good, right, that's been effective? Is there anything that you've done that's really stuck out to you? It's okay to brag. We're looking for success stories, not all downer stories. Any challenges that y'all have had to overcome?
One thing that we struggle with Amelia right now is she thinks she knows best.
That doesn't stop.
Tell her not to do something because it's not safe. And she, no, it's fine. It's
Yeah.
fine. No, it's really not. Okay. So sometimes I struggle with getting her to see what we are afraid of,
Mm.
or what we're, even to give her an example of something, she doesn't really fully get it. And I know the brain's not fully developed, especially at that young age.
Yeah.
But that's something we have a challenge with a lot of times is like, there's a reason we're telling you this.
Yeah.
Either from experience or things that, we have heard of that, or, something is giving us that reason to think this may not be a good idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a tough one. I don't know that it stops anytime soon. Again, that's one of those find your consistent path and stick to it things. What works for teaching them. I'll use Hunter and Kylie. I said last class we kind of parent initially how we were parented. So anytime Hunter did something wrong, I straight spank, just spank, whatever it was, spank. He stopped doing a whole lot of things, even to the point like we got worried, like he doesn't know how to do anything now because he's scared of doing everything. And you kind of learn that you overdo some things. And so Kylie, raising her, I think we spanked her one time. The rest of the time it was just looking at her. You just have to look at her, and she'd start crying, and she'd stop what she's doing. Couldn't do that with Tate. Couldn't look at him. He'd just stare back. He'd just be like, that does no good. Does no good. Spanking worked on Tate, not on Kylie. But you'll find your way if you stay consistent. I believe in that. Lean on family to help. That's a tough one.
I think something that I struggle with both kids is the comparison trap.
Ooh.
Comparing them to every kid their
Mm-hmm.
age, especially with Presley, we've kind of learned through her not to do it as much as Rocky, but, for example, physically, she was big.
Mm.
She was just big, and, she was 15 months before she took her first steps, and that was really hard for me. I was taking her to physical therapy, and it was just, she was big, and she
Yeah.
wanted to do it perfectly, and when she did it, she was great. But, Rocky was 17 months, but I didn't worry about him as much, because I was like, well,
Yeah.
just do it when he does it. But still, poor Presley, through everything with her, every milestone has been comparison.
Mm-hmm.
Tara asked me, if she could read or something the other night, and I was like, should she be reading? I don't know.
Yeah.
I haven't done that yet. But it's so hard, especially now with, social media, and you see all these people just throwing their highlight reels of their kids reading at, 2 or whatever. And you're just like, and potty training was tough, because, again, Presley was a little slower with that, but I learned, once I just gave her the reins, once I let go of the control,
Yeah.
she wanted to do it, but everyone was on me about her needing to be potty trained. I was like, I just don't think she's going to do it if I keep pushing. And the second I stopped, once I listened to my gut, it was fine. But as long as people were telling me what I should be doing, because other kids are at a certain point in this age,
Yeah.
it's hard.
There is such a great built-in biblical concept there with comparison. On the concepts of the Bible, we think about who are we comparing to? Are we comparing ourselves to God's word, or are we comparing to what our neighbor has and is doing and is successful by, and what they're driving, what they're giving generously? What are we comparing to? And we get into that rut of comparison with our kids, with everything. And I think the social media world is just the devil's playground for that stuff. Half of it's fake, I think, and then the rest of it is causing us to have doubts about what we're doing, whether that be as a parent or whether that be in their physical growth realm. Well, that kid's doing pull-ups and chin-ups, and he's got a six-pack at 6 years old. My kid should have a six-pack at 6 years old. My kid should be a black belt in karate. Kids mature at different ages, different stages, in different ways. I'm a firm believer that is for the parent to God. That is for the parent to parent. I get a little upset when people say, well, such and such, 12 years old, is in advance in their class. They're 5 classes ahead. They're already a senior. They're graduating next week. Good. I'm happy for them. That's great. My 17-year-old has the mental maturity of a 14-year-old. He's got Asperger's. Parent your child. Know their limits. That's for you. Just like it's just on you to live your life according to God's word. Sorry, comparison soapbox.
I think it's also important, just as important to look at our child and see their gifts and their talents and their strengths, and to celebrate those instead of looking like, oh, they can't do this, they can't do that. But look at what they can do, and really point that out to them, and encourage them.
That's so right. Such a good point. Got home, lawn was mowed. I was very thankful. Hunter mowed the lawn. Didn't ask him. Didn't weed eat. Just did all the easy stuff. I wanted to walk in and be like, you didn't mow. You didn't mow at all. You missed all the hard stuff. Sometimes you have to celebrate the wins. Thank you for taking the time to mow. You care if I teach you how to use a weed eater next time? Baby steps, right? But celebrating the wins, because the world is good enough at criticizing. We do need to build up our children and encourage them in the good things that they're doing. Praise them for the good things they're doing. Great point.
Yeah, I think we all are aware that social media is really a highlight reel of people's lives. They're not typically going to put anything negative on there that would sell products or get likes or whatever. But I think one thing we talk about compare kids to other kids, I think compare internally to your brother went through this.
Oh, yeah.
That can cause some issues.
Yeah.
Well, I think we all understand when we talk about this, they're all different.
There was a comedian that talked about that with Jesus' brother. Why can't you be more like Jesus? Never been in trouble and built us a shelf. You're absolutely right, though, and that only causes conflict between them and in the home. So, great point.
I thought I struggled even with comparing Madison to Madison.
Mm.
Because she is, very intelligent.
Mhm.
And so when she has moments where she's not, it's like, you should know better. Or even if it's academic stuff, and she, makes a grade, and it's like, I know she can do better. And she once told me, she was like, I think if I went to the Olympics and got a silver medal, you would say you could have gotten gold.
Oh.
But she's not wrong.
Yeah.
She's not wrong, because I do push her more.
Yeah.
Because I compare her to herself, and sometimes that is dangerous too.
And sometimes we expect more out of our kids than what they're capable of giving at the time. I'm not saying that's the case, just we do that as parents. It's kind of like the parent living vicariously through their kid playing sports, like we talked about Sunday. That's a dangerous trap. I love question number 2. I want to hit it. Why do you think this biblical subject is so avoided? It's hard. It's hard. It is hard. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. And it's, God's principles remain the same. His truth remains the same. Our parenting has to get them there. That path can look different for each parent and each child. Points to the same thing. Points to God.
Probably not in this room, but worldly people would say this text is an outdated piece of material. You can't do the things that you do now that you did back then or whatever.
I do. All right. No, it's great. Okay, Proverbs 22:6 is a truism. This is number 3. A general truth that generally works. It doesn't argue exceptions. Ezekiel 18 illustrates that good parents can have rebellious children. At the same time, lousy parents can have godly children. How does the principle of individual choice bear upon raising children? That's a tough one.
With the second, as far as like, lousy parents having godly children,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you are not example. And so I know several people that you're like surprised that they came out of that situation okay with the way they were raised. But they've seen it and they know what it did to their
Yeah.
parents or
Yeah.
whatever, and so they learn on that.
Don't want to reflect that. Mm-hmm. That's good. Good point. Anybody had to have the dumb games? Play dumb games. Yeah, had to have that talk. We talk to our children about they have a choice. You have a choice. But all choices have consequences. All choices have consequences. And so they learn that some of their choices will bring about good consequences, some will bring about bad consequences. But to an extent, you're talking about someone pushing a limit. I don't remember who brought that up a while ago. There's been a few occasions I've probably parented wrong where I've said, no, just let him touch it. Let's see how this plays out. Let's see what he learns. 2 burn feet later. No, I'm joking. Different story. But, sometimes that does work, depending on the situation. Other times we have to prevent it because it's going to kill him. I mean, literally it's going to kill him. And I feel like that's another part of like that infancy stage. Like, we're just trying to keep these things alive at this point. Yeah, survival with a pet raccoon. It's easy for parents of children that turn out well to take all the credit. On the other hand, it's easy for parents of rebellious children to take all the blame. Where is the healthy balance? Some of these questions are kind of just thought-provoking. That is heavy. I don't know that there's a right or wrong answer outside of we have to give credit where credit is due. If our children are making good decisions, we're calling them out on those good decisions or bad decisions, helping them reflect on accountability. We've already talked about this, number 5. How important is it? It's crucial. It's crucial at all stages. But how important it is in the early years of a child's life to create a desire in their heart for God. Pulled up next to a truck the other day, and there was 3 girls in the truck, and they were screaming to the top of their lungs, "This little light of mine." And he was video recording them, and I was closed windowed in my car hearing them scream the song, and I just looked over and I went like that. It was so cool. But what's cool about that is that was these young little girls with a desire for God singing "This Little Light of Mine." So, second bell didn't go off, did it? No, I think it's not. Okay. I think we should sing louder. All right. Let's see. Oh, number 7. I got one on this. Name something your parents or grandparents did that influenced you at an early age. I'm going to pick on a grandparent because I'll never forget this conversation. I told my granddad before he died, my grandpa, I said, I'm scared of death. Like, it scares me to think about dying. And he immediately, without missing a beat, he said, "I'm not scared of dying at all." He said, "I'm ready to get to heaven. I'm ready to be in heaven. We all want to be in heaven." And that conversation I will never forget because it kind of put that different perspective of we know where we want to be in life, and that is in heaven. So our grandparents can have such a great influence on us well. All right. Thank you all. A lot of hard talks there, but a lot of fun talks. We'll get in lesson 2 on Sunday.